Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Kyle Henderson along with Andrew Bone coming to you from beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Today, we're talking Alabama Crimson Tide football recruiting. Bone, what's going on, man? Good to have you here.
It's good, and nice weather outside. We're
Yeah.
yeah, it kind of makes me a little upset that uh, we Alabama couldn't do their spring break the same week as my kids' spring break, so we're heading to the beach next week, which is going to be nice. But also it's kind of a work week, so we'll be kind of inside working a good bit next week. So it's not like things are going to slow down at all for us. But it'd be nice to kind of break away for a few days, be in a different environment. But yeah, I mean, we're in the middle of a spring practice, which also means the middle of kids visiting campus and kids starting to set up official visits, trimming down their list of favorites. New offers still going out, and there's a lot kind of going on in the recruiting world right now. It's starting to really ramp up too. I mean, we kind of went through that little dry spell in the month of February, where nothing was happening. We were seeing offers that were dropping every single day. A lot of those were, hey, we like you, but we want to see you in camp. Here's an offer.
Yep.
Still come to camp. But now we're kind of getting into the almost into the spring evaluation stages where where coaches, and this is something that a lot of people don't really think about, but coaches are starting, even though spring practice is going on, they're still evaluating a lot of film. They're going through all the
Mhm.
guys that they've offered, and making sure that they're going to go out and see those guys during the spring. Once that spring evaluation period starts, they're going to go ahead and start mapping out all the different high schools that they're going to stop by and see and try to get film on these kids before summer camp, because 90% of the kids that they are recruiting are still going to come back this summer. A lot of them are going to work out in Tuscaloosa, going to work out in front of Coach Saban. Right now it's all about trying to evaluate and getting a better understanding of who's going to be their top targets moving forward. And because a lot of those kids are going to be making decisions during the summer, because we've seen so many kids take all of their official visits during those summer months. We're really in the month of June. They try to take 4 or 5 official visits and then make that decision in July, August, right before their senior season. So that will be here before we know it. Obviously, there's going to still be some kids that are going to wait until the season or after the season and make their decision. And even those kids that do make decisions before, you got to worry about those guys because they're still going to take visits in the fall. There's still going to be a lot of communication happening back and forth. But
Mhm.
right now, Alabama's sitting with a pretty good recruiting class, but it's also small. It's 4 commitments right now. When are we going to start seeing some movement? And that's kind of what somebody asked me the other day. Are we about to see a wave of commitments? Not necessarily. I think we're going to kind of get through the spring. You don't really see a ton of kids committing during spring practices or after spring games or anything like that, or even junior days. That used to be kind of the big deal. Kids coming in for junior days, and then all of a sudden you get 10 commitments. But now the fact that you can take your official visits before your senior season,
Mhm.
kids like to take advantage of that. Alabama, the position that they are in, they are not recruiting a lot of kids that don't have more than or excuse me, less than 20 scholarship offers. These are kids that are nationally known guys. They're
Yep.
heavily recruited. They're going to take their official visits. They're going to enjoy the process a little bit more, and then a lot of times Alabama wins those recruiting battles, as we saw in last year's #1 recruiting class. So, going to be exciting to see what happens over the next few months. And the springtime is really that time where you really start to discover who the premier targets are on their recruiting board.
Here with Andrew Bone of Bama Insider. You can go read all the coverage back at Bama Insider. Bone, along with Clint Lamb and Jimmy Stein, Joseph Hastings, make up a great squad at Bama Insider. Bone, I want to ask you, because Auburn now has a new head football coach, Hugh Freeze. And Auburn's been able to pretty much have most of the guys that Alabama has as commitments as visitors. So I kind of wanted to gauge your thoughts on this. Just the fact that they've had Perry Thompson, Jalen Mbakwe, Sterling Dixon, Ryan Williams. Those guys are obviously still being recruited, but they're committed to Alabama. I think they've had everyone except for Julian Sayin. Kind of your take on that and the philosophy of, now that we have Hugh Freeze in the SEC arena.
Yeah, there's a couple sides to it. Obviously, these kids have committed to Alabama. Perry Thompson committed, and Jalen Mbakwe, and Ryan Williams. Or Jalen Mbakwe, Perry Thompson both committed to Alabama last summer. You had Ryan Williams that committed. I think it was October, and then Sterling Dixon committed to Alabama on December the 1st. The new Auburn staff came in. Obviously excites the fan base. You got a lot of guys who are very active on the recruiting front, and from what we can tell, they're not scared of Alabama.
Mhm.
That's probably what we've seen from previous staffs. Alabama gets a commitment, stop recruiting them. They're not really going after, and they've been going after all of Alabama's commitments. Maybe outside of Julian saying, and they've been able to get those guys on campus. Now, Alabama kind of does things a little bit differently as far as communication, pursuit, especially when a guy's committed. You're committed to Alabama. Alabama's probably not picking up the phone calling you every single day. Other schools are. Other schools are reaching out to you, trying to get you to flip, trying to get you to visit. So Auburn has really, been very active as far as reaching out to these guys and talking to them. I think just about every single one of them says, somebody from Auburn's coaching staff reaches out every single day. So when you're hearing from these coaches, almost on a daily basis, and they're inviting you to campus, they're inviting you to practice, they want to see you as much as possible, and you're available to come up there. A lot of times you're going to, make that trip. So we
Mhm.
have been seeing these guys go to Auburn, and Sterling Dixon, one player in particular. This is a guy that we've seen some coaching changes at Alabama, obviously, but it's been more so at his position than anywhere else. You have Pete Golding, who's the inside linebackers coach plus defense coordinator, leaves Alabama to go to Ole Miss, and that's who originally recruited Sterling Dixon. And then you bring in Austin Armstrong, recruiting him as an inside linebacker,
Mhm.
trying to develop that relationship there. Boom, he's gone and goes to Florida after a month or so in Tuscaloosa. And then now you have Kevin Steele, new defense coordinator, and you also have a new inside linebackers coach in Robert Bala. So it's kind of been a little bit of a whirlwind for Sterling, and he's kind of had the same coaches from whether it's LSU or Auburn that have been recruiting him. For the last few months, for the last 3 months, the same coaches, and developing relationship with those guys, having to develop a new relationship over and over. So I think right now with Sterling Dixon, it's all about trying to build a connection with the new guys on Alabama staff with Kevin Steele, Robert Bala, and Sterling told me the other day that he plans on being in Tuscaloosa
Mhm.
in early April, getting back up to campus, spending time around those coaches because he hasn't been since Austin Armstrong left. So it's going to be big for him to get back to Tuscaloosa and try to see kind of how he fits in with the new guys, if he likes them, and if he wants to continue to build that connection with them, and continue to build his commitment, a stronger commitment with the Tide. And then with Perry Thompson. Now Perry has visited Auburn a couple times. It came out a month or so ago, 2 months ago, said that his commitment was 60% to Alabama. So 60% is not really good. You typically hear kids, and I guess Perry was probably being more honest than any other kid in the history of recruiting, as far as saying he's 60%. Because usually you hear, even kids who are on the fence or who are about to flip, they'll come out and say, "Yeah, I'm 95% committed," and then the next day they flip to another school. So Perry comes out and says that he's 60%, and I guess that's just probably because he was still taking visits. He visited Tennessee, visited Auburn a couple different times, including I think it was last week when he was back in Auburn. But he did an interview with Joseph Hastings with Bama Insider the other day, and said that he is a little bit more back to 100% with Alabama. That he feels really confident about, the commitment to the Tide. One thing that probably stood out to me more than anything was, he really singled out the medical staff at Alabama, and the guys that they have there, that can help him if anything were to happen, regardless of what it is. I mean, it is obviously an A plus medical staff,
Yep.
training staff.
Mhm.
Everything they've got there is absolutely top of the line, and can't say enough good things about what they have in that regard, and that's something that really stands out to Perry. So right now, Perry's pretty solid with his commitment to Alabama, but I encourage fans to go check out the interview with Perry on BamaInsider.com. And then you got Ryan Williams. Ryan is Mr. Football in the state of Alabama, reigning Mr. Football in the state of Alabama, 2025 wide receiver out of Saraland High School. Had an amazing sophomore season, and now all of a sudden everybody knows about him, and he committed to Alabama, back during the fall, and people knew him a little bit back in the fall as well, but now he's really well known. He's an Auburn legacy, and he's visited Auburn a couple times since the new coaching staff has joined the Tigers. So
Mhm.
this is certainly going to be one player that we're going to watch. Obviously for the next year and a half to kind of see what happens, throughout his recruitment, because his family, they are Auburn fans, and he has admitted to growing up liking the Tigers, but he's also been a big fan of Alabama as far as their wide receiver development, and watching the guys, and he's got a pretty close bond with Jameson Williams and a lot of guys that are on the that are already in the NFL and guys that are on the team right now. So a lot's going to kind of depend on this next year. Alabama continues to have success on the offensive side of the ball, continue to produce great receivers. They need to continue to get him to campus, but he's going to be watching both offenses pretty closely this football season and kind of figure out where he feels like he fits in best. And right now it's Alabama, but you never know. A year from now, it could be Auburn. So it's somebody that we're going to be watching and seeing what happens in his recruitment. And then Jalen Mbakwe, number one player in the state of Alabama, 5-star recruit. So this is certainly a guy that, in my opinion, is not going anywhere. I think he's pretty rock solid with his commitment to Alabama. He's been a guy that's recruiting players to
Mhm.
Alabama. He's always in Tuscaloosa. Family are Alabama fans, so things can be really hard to flip Jalen. Now that said, he has taken a couple visits. Went to
Mhm.
LSU back on January the 28th. He was in Auburn recently, so both those schools are certainly coming hard after him. But in the end, I do fully expect Jalen to sign with Alabama. But you got to give a lot of credit to the Auburn coaching staff, though. I mean, they're recruiting really hard, a lot, in my opinion, a lot harder than the previous staff, and Alabama's going to have their work cut out for them. I mean, there's a lot of schools in the SEC right now that are trying to challenge Alabama, that are going after similar recruits, and they're going to be fighting hard for them. And with Alabama, Georgia, they're national powers. They're schools that have won, you know, Georgia winning the last two, Alabama, winning six since Nick Saban took over the program. I mean, it's easy to recruit there, but it's also difficult. I mean, it's difficult to continue to sell your program to these top end guys every single year when those guys know that they signed 5 stars at this position and top 100 guys at that position, and they did that the year before and the year before and the year before. So you got to continue to try to sell your program as best as you can, and nobody's really better at it than Nick Saban and the overall program. So in the end, they're going to be fine. I'm not concerned about Alabama recruiting one bit, but I am. All I'm saying is there are other schools that are out there besides Georgia's and Ohio State and Clemson that are starting to really amp things up. I mean, you look at Texas A&M, the way they were able to recruit 2 years ago, and they're still having success. Auburn now with its new coaching staff. Tennessee, we see the success that they have, but it's not just that. It's programs throughout the country: USC, Oklahoma, Miami, South Carolina's having some success. So um, it's not just going to be the 2 or 3 schools at the top anymore. I think it's going to the playing field is going to be a little more equal. That doesn't mean Alabama can't sign a number one recruiting class like they did this past year, and they lost on some key guys in 2023. Some big names that went to Miami or went to Tennessee, went to Georgia, went to Ohio State, but they still signed the best recruiting class in the country. And you look at top to bottom all the guys that they signed, and you're like, there's nobody in this class that you don't want. And but of course, everybody wants all the other guys that that went elsewhere. But in the day, you can't sign them all. And Alabama's still going to be Alabama.
Here with Andrew Bone of BamaInsider.com. Be sure and hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. We appreciate you guys being a part of our BamaInsider.com family, closer to 90,000 subscribers every single day. Bone, when we were talking pre-show, you told me that top 100 offensive lineman Josiah Thompson has set a commitment date for April 11th. A lot of people are curious where things stand. What does it mean for the Alabama Crimson Tide?
I don't think it means anything good for Alabama. I think they were hoping to get Josiah Thompson in town. I think he had originally scheduled a visit in mid-April, and now he's decided to schedule a commitment date prior to that visit. So probably not good for Alabama. This is we know Alabama signed one of the best recruiting classes on the offensive line last year. 5 offensive linemen, including 5-star Caden Proctor. So they're certainly trying to add more to that. And I recently said that I think Alabama's going to at least try to sign 4 to 5 offensive linemen in this class. And there's only probably a handful of kids right now, maybe even less than that can pick up the phone on the offensive line and commit to Alabama. Josiah Thompson is one of those guys. He's heavily recruited by Eric Wolford and the Alabama coaching staff. They really like him a lot, but they also need to get him to campus, and he hasn't visited. South Carolina is in really good shape there. He visited the Gamecocks on March the 24th. Clemson's also in the mix. So I do think that when we get to April the 11th, I think he's probably going to end up staying in state. That doesn't mean Alabama's not going to be recruiting him up until that point. They're going to continue to try to press for him, but I do think the Gamecocks are in really good shape. You look at the RPM right there on 3 Sports, 96.6%. It usually tends to be pretty good, even though it can be wrong, but that certainly is a strong indicator right there of which school is in the driver's seat at this time. And I do think that if he commits to South Carolina, to Clemson, Alabama is going to continue to recruit him, going to try to still bring him in for an official visit. But South Carolina, obviously, they've had some success. We looked at the recruiting class they signed last year, and I think that Shane Beamer's doing a really good job up in Columbia. So Josiah Thompson, one of Alabama's top offensive line targets, not the only one. There's certainly some other guys that are out there that they will, continue to recruit and evaluate and, get to campus throughout the spring and summer.
Here with Andrew Bone of BamaInsider.com. Hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. Bone, back at Bama Insider, you have your big board. I'll give everyone kind of a little sample of, kind of behind the paywall, if you will. And this is Bone's big board. This is the Tide's top receiver targets. And as you can see, Bone puts the depth in. As we talked about Perry Thompson, you can kind of scroll down, get the highlights. Bone, what goes into the big board? Talk a little bit about what you got going on as you kind of break down the 2024 list and what can people expect at Bama Insider.
Yeah, so we got a great deal right now on BamaInsider.com. So if you go on there right now, if you're a new subscriber, this is a new subscriber only deal. If you go on there right now, try to subscribe, or don't try to subscribe,
Yeah.
and it's $10 for 4 months. That's a remarkable deal for all the spring practice coverage, all the recruiting coverage that's coming out right now. Plus, that kind of gets you into the summer. The summer months is extremely busy on the recruiting front with everything that's going on with all the camps, new offers, commitments. That's where you want to be. Plus, you get to talk to me every single day on the message board. So you go to the Talk of Champions right now, ask me a question. I'm gonna respond, pretty quickly, even if it's at 2 a.m. in the morning. I might wake up, go to the bathroom, and I'm gonna pop on the message board, just make sure nobody's needing me for anything. But yeah, go on there right now, sign up. It's $10. $10. People want to. We have a lot of people that send tips our way. Go sign up for $10. Subscribe. 4 months gets you access to BamaInsider.com. So what I've started doing here in the last 2 weeks is we started breaking down these Alabama big boards. Now, Alabama big board, I'm not saying it looks identical to what Alabama has in
Yeah.
in their football offices right now,
Mhm.
but I do think it's pretty close.
Mhm.
We try to break down and try to talk to as many people as we possibly can to kind of get a good feel of you know who Alabama is really going after, who are guys that potentially need to come back to camp
Yeah.
and before they can really commit. But who are the guys that they are going to sign in this 2024 class as far as right now goes. Guys that they are heavily recruiting that they would likely take commitments from right now. Or even some guys that they may really like a lot. They might just want to see run a route or two during the during the spring or during the summer, and then then they have that green light to commit because one of the biggest things Nick Saban likes to see these guys in person. He sees the
Mhm.
film, he tries to evaluate them as much as he can. He gets their height and weight, but he also wants to see them run a little bit in person before taking that commitment. And that can be a 5-star, that can be a top 100 type kid. It doesn't matter. And we saw that last summer. There was probably, I remember at one point last summer there was like 7 top 100 safeties that had visited Alabama. Now, 2 of those safeties ended up being in Alabama's recruiting class, and Tony Mitchell, and then obviously Caleb Downs. But then Bray Hubbard comes to camp and works out at safety for the very first time ever, and balls out a lot more than some of the other top 100 safeties who had come to Alabama's camp to work out for Coach Saban. And a lot of those guys weren't recruited after that. So coming to camp is very important, regardless of your star ranking. If you have a offer prior to camp, or if you don't, it's just anybody can earn an offer from Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide. But right now, like I said, we're kind of breaking down the key targets at each position. We did the running backs last week. This week, we broke down the wide receivers. Now, wide receivers is going to be a little interesting this year because Alabama signed 5 wide receivers in the 2022 recruiting class. Now, one of those guys no longer on the team, Aaron Anderson, entered the
Yep.
transfer portal, went
Yep.
to LSU. So he had 4 guys who returned. Now, this past recruiting class in 2023, Alabama signed 4 wide receivers. My opinion, it's almost like really only signing 3 wide receivers because one of those guys is a JUCO player, Malik
Yep.
Benson, who I think is going to be an absolute superstar this
Wow.
fall and could potentially, uh, depending on how well he performs, could potentially be gone. He might
Yeah.
end up entering the NFL draft, so that's
Yeah.
always something that's a possibility. I do think Alabama's going to try to sign 3 wide receivers right now. Could that number grow? Maybe it really kind of just depends on once you kind of get into the season, get a feel of who might potentially leave, who might
Mhm.
potentially transfer, and if you really need to get more players at that position. So, in my opinion, right now they're going to try to sign 3. They already have one in Perry Thompson from Foley High School. We talked about Perry a little bit ago. Uh, the biggest thing there is keeping him on board because
Yeah.
Alabama absolutely loves this kid. They think he's one of the best players in the entire country. They offered him last summer. I think Alabama was like the first scholarship offer he received last year, and committed shortly after. But he had an unbelievable camp performance, and then backed it up with a tremendous football season where he had over 1,000 yards receiving this past fall. But now a lot of schools are coming hard after him and trying to flip him away from Alabama. But as of right now, he's 100% solid. But there's one other in-state guy that is starting to really gain a lot of steam, and that's Cam Coleman from Central High School in Phoenix City. Now, wouldn't be surprised if Alabama splits on these 2 guys, Perry Thompson and Cam Coleman. And Cam being right there, right outside of Auburn in Phoenix City. It's really close to campus. He's been over there before. He likes the coaching staff, but he also really likes Alabama. Visited Alabama 3 times during the fall.
Mhm.
Was at camp last summer. Now Alabama offered him a little bit later. They offered him in January. He hasn't visited Tuscaloosa yet, but he plans on getting to Alabama this spring and continuing to develop the relationship with the Alabama coaching staff. A lot of top schools coming after Cam. This is. I think his eyes are starting to get a little bit bigger. He's starting to see a lot more schools
Yeah.
attracted to him than he did a month or so ago. Yeah, you got to think this is a kid who he's rated a 5-star on some sites. He's on 3, top 20 overall. he was playing basketball. So as soon as his junior season ended, football season ended, went straight into basketball. So he didn't really get a chance to get out much in
Mhm.
January, didn't really get seen. And
Mhm.
then his highlight film started getting out there. People started seeing his highlights from the basketball gym as well, which were pretty impressive. And now he's on this 7-on-7 camp circuit where he's just been absolutely dominating, was named MVP of one of the national 7-on-7 camps this past weekend. So he is a major offensive weapon, and we've seen some great wide receivers come out of Central Phoenix City before, including Justin Ross. Probably a little similar to Justin Ross, and he's got a chance to be a really special player. So this is a big target for the Crimson Tide. A couple other names that are out there. Mike Matthews out of Georgia, 5-star recruit, is going to be visiting Alabama, I believe, on April the 8th. This is going to be his first trip to Alabama this year. So it's a big visit for him coming up. Amari Jefferson, who is a Tennessee baseball commitment out of the Baylor School in Chattanooga. He was in Tuscaloosa a couple of weeks ago for that March 4th Junior Day. Alabama really likes him a lot. I believe he's one of the top overall wide receivers in the country. Is also very high on Georgia's recruiting board. Been to Athens a couple times, but made that first trip to Alabama a few weeks ago. He's coming back in the spring. Says he's going to definitely take an official visit. So that's certainly another kid that we're going to be watching closely. And then let's see, one other guy I'll mention is Keelan Adams out of Virginia. Hasn't visited Tuscaloosa yet, but Alabama recently offered him, and trying to get him on campus this spring. And I certainly expect that to happen. But those aren't the only guys. Those are 4 names that we threw out there. I probably listed about 6 or 7 guys on that list that they were actually recruiting and talking to and really like a lot. There's some guys, there's some 5-stars, some top 100 type players that Alabama just may not have as much interest in as some of these other guys that we've mentioned. And, a lot can change during the spring, during the summer. Those guys get seen a little bit more during camp, could shoot up the recruiting board, could set up official visits. So things can change pretty quickly.
Mhm.
Once evaluations happen. So we try to stay on top of it. This big board for wide receivers, for running backs,
Mhm.
it can easily change. This is kind of where things stand at the moment, and we're going to update it as often as we possibly can. So I encourage everyone to go to BamaInsider.com and check it out, because that big board is going to change, quite often throughout the year. But we got a pretty good sense of where things are right now as far as the main guys that they're targeting, that they're really pushing for, and we try to share that with all of our subscribers on Bama Insider.
He's Andrew Bone. I'm Kyle Henderson. Hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. Go check out Bone's coverage back on Bama Insider. Bone, as we wrap up, tomorrow is Pro Day. That's going to be Thursday, March 23rd, 2023. Pro Day is awesome. I mean, the lineup is going to be great. A lot of headliners, but this one is interesting. We got this is your article right here. It's now or never for DJ Fluker in his return to the NFL. First of all, this picture is absolutely fire. This is the vibe. This has to be every male after the shower, right? You're just like doing the flex off. DJ
Yeah,
Fluker,
that's me after an arm day at the gym. I don't look
right?
like that, but I feel like that.
That's what I'm saying. That is like every guy wants that. So DJ Fluker, he looks great. What a story. I mean, we're going to get a chance to see Bryce Young throw. DJ Fluker, as everyone knows, with the comeback story, he was a 2012 All-American. Fill us in a little bit on kind of the return of DJ Fluker, and I know you spoke to his trainer, I believe.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to speak to Jacob Rice, who was his trainer. Actually, was his trainer uh, in Seattle. The DJ played with the Seattle Seahawks for a couple of years, and that's when they first kind of linked up and and started working out together. And Coach Rice actually kind of stuck with DJ when he left. Went to Baltimore, got traded, or didn't get traded, but left Seattle, got signed by the Baltimore Ravens, and prior to training camp, continued to work with Coach Rice on his nutrition, his weight, just overall skills as an offensive lineman, really working on hand-eye coordination, footwork, stuff like that. And then DJ kind of got bounced around, signed with a couple different schools. I'm so used to saying schools,
You know,
franchises. Signed with the Dolphins, the Raiders, and back to
yeah,
Jacksonville, and
yeah.
then fell out of the NFL last year. And it was kind of a tough time for DJ because I think that he probably felt like his career was over. He was injured. He was overweight. His trainer told me he said he gained 50 really bad pounds of weight, and he was over 400
Mhm.
pounds. Now he's 337 pounds. I've covered DJ Fluker since he was a freshman in high school. I remember going out to I remember McGill Tool in high school had a practice at the Alabama football complex one day, and I went. I have no reason or no idea why I went out there to it. No idea. I can't even remember who I went to see, but DJ was not the first. Was not the guy on my list that I was going to see. I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
going to see somebody else. Maybe it was like Sidell Corley. That was a blast from the past. But or Phelan Jones. That's who it was. I think I was going to see Phelan Jones. So I got to the McGill Tool in practice, and I see this big kid, and I was just like, "Who is that kid?" And one of the coaches came up to me and was talking to me. He said, "That's DJ Fluker. He just got his family got displaced from Hurricane Katrina. They lived in the lower Ninth Ward in
Gotcha.
New Orleans,
Mhm,
and they moved to Mobile.
mhm.
And so he spent a season at McGill Tulane. And this is, I mean, at the time he was huge. I was like, this, if he can stay on the right path,
Yeah.
and because you just never know when kids you see those type of bodies, they can go one way or they can go
Yeah.
another. And
Mhm,
you're like, that guy could be 500 pounds one day, or he could be a really impressive offensive lineman, and he was playing
mhm,
defensive line at the time.
mhm.
um, so he ends up leaving McGill, goes to, I don't know, I can't remember the reason why, but I'm sure something with family. So he ends up in Biloxi and played in Biloxi, and then ends up back at Foley High School for his senior season, and was one of the most impressive looking high school offensive linemen I have ever seen. I mean,
Wow.
6 foot, 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah,
Of course, at the time, I think everybody at the time listed him at like 6'8",
yeah.
even though he wasn't that tall. But he carried his weight really well. He moved well for his size. People kind of picked on him a little bit just because he had these humongous feet, and he was a defensive lineman for all these years, so everybody wanted to critique him, but he ends up having an unbelievable senior season. Goes out to the U.S. Army All-American game, dominates out there. Ended up being a five-star, number one overall offensive lineman in the country, and obviously went to Alabama, had a great career, goes into the NFL, first round draft pick,
Mhm.
and then ends up kind of where he was. So had a great opportunity to talk to his trainer, kind of about where DJ is right now, both mentally, physically. Great interview. DJ's really excited about working out in front of a lot of NFL scouts tomorrow, hoping that he can get an opportunity to return to the NFL, get invited to a fall camp, and I think he's going to have a chance. I mean, you look at him right there, probably the lightest. I don't want to say the best shape he's ever been in, but and that's kind of what his trainer told me. I wouldn't say the best shape he's ever been in, but he's the lightest he's ever been, and
Yeah.
he's ready to go. So you've been away from football for a little bit. You got to kind of get that back, and you get that back by getting out there on the field, training, working out with guys, and being physical. But he's got his weight down, and that was kind of his biggest crutch throughout his career is just being overweight. And he was 6'5", 300, and his trainer told me, even though he was listed at 330, 340, he
Mhm.
was probably more in the 365 to
Yeah.
370 range throughout his playing career in the NFL, and now he's down to 337. So how can he stick to that and
Mhm.
also be quick, be fast coming off the ball? Because the trainer, he even mentioned like he's gonna have to go up against guys like Micah Parsons, T.J. Watt, a little bit more challenging, but it's a pretty unique, interesting story, and I certainly hope that DJ is going to have an opportunity. But great read. Well, I don't want to say great read. Talk me up. It's a great quotes from his trainer, Jacob Rice. So I appreciate him taking the time with us and encourage Alabama fans to go check out the story.
Um, this is a full list of Alabama's pro days. So you got William Anderson, he'll be limited. Got Jordan Battle, Brian Branch, DJ Dell, Emil Egior, Jameer Gibbs, DeMarco Hellams, Cam Latu, Jalen Moody, Kendall Randolph. Kendall
Look at all
Randolph.
those. Look at all those transfers.
Yep. Yep.
He got four
I mean,
transfers on there, which is wild to see. But
Tyler
yeah,
Steen, Toto, Bryce Young, Byron Young. And you know what? Bryce Young is going to throw tomorrow because he didn't throw at the original pro day. But guess who they're bringing back for him, Bone?
Slade Bolden. Yeah. So
Bolden.
Alabama's going to have 3 former players who were not on the Alabama team last year that are going to be working out at pro day with DJ, Slade Bolden, and a punter that I think he hadn't played in a couple of years, or I was surprised when I heard his name mentioned, Charlie Scott. So,
that's J.K. Scott's brother.
That's right. So you got 3 guys that are going to be out there working out at Alabama on Thursday, not just the guys who were playing on the team last year. So be interesting and be a fun day to kind of keep track of everything. And we'll have a running thread on BamaInsider.com tomorrow with all the updates, who's doing well and the drills.
One of the things that I like about Pro Day is because, Tuscaloosa doesn't have its own airport. It has a smaller, like, regional airport, right? It's not for commercial. So all the private jets that are flying in are all the head football coaches from around the country. So you get like, Kyle Shanahan, Bill Belichick, and you get to see like who's who at the indoor facility, and get to see those guys checking out. I mean, this is honestly the pro days in the past have, it's kind of a little bit underwhelming. I think, a couple years ago they have like Josh Jacobs, which is cool to see, but this list right here, this is like must see. I think it's on the NFL Network. So if you're out there and they like live stream, they get a much better angle than we do on the field. Check it out because I mean this should be great. I mean there's
so many guys. You have 4 or 5 potential first round draft picks. So you got a lot of you're gonna have a lot of NFL franchises there tomorrow. Head coaches. That's always fun to see. Which head coaches and which GMs are are going to be on campus tomorrow. So it's going to be. I'm sure they're all rolling into town tonight. They're already at the facility, spending time with the coaches, and
they're about to be at Innisfree here at 7 p.m.
Innisfree gonna be lit this evening. Coaches.
Yeah. So, I might have to go to Innisfree too for a shepherd's pie and be like,
that's right.
Roll in, see if link up with Kyle Shanahan and be like, yo, the 49ers, man. I mean, I tell you.
Bama Insider live from Innisfree for Pro Day. Yep.
That's right, man. Cool. Bone, good work, man. Outstanding stuff. You can go read more back at Bama Insider. I'm sure Bone will put any links that he has at the bottom of this video. We will be back to you on Thursday for Pro Day. We'll have Nick Saban will speak. You'll get to hear from, I'm sure we'll get to hear from maybe William Anderson, Bryce Young. I believe it's on the NFL Network, so you can go check it out. But we'll have coverage back up Bama Insider. It's editorial wise, and of course, right here on our YouTube channel. Hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. We appreciate you guys being part of our BamaInsider.com family. Coming to you from beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama. He's Andrew Bone. I'm Kyle Henderson. We'll talk to you guys soon right here on Bama Insider.